Let's start to talk about architectural practice for great scalability. My name is Otavio Santana. I'm happy to be here. I enjoy the city a lot. I did a trip yesterday. The sky is wonderful. Hagia Sophia is amazing. I know that I'm not there to do that word anymore. I went to the boat trip. It's cool. My unique complaint is with the taxis. They always try to put me behind somehow. And then I said, man, what I'm trying to do, I'm teaching, I'm Brazilian. So I do the whole trick to put tourists behind. So don't try to do this kind of thing of me. But anyway, today is to talk more about the architectural practice again. I don't know if you're familiar, I usually do live code, especially with Java. But today, I'd like to do an exception, talk more about architecture, especially because right now I'm become a distinguished engineer, and beyond do the code, I need to review and need to make sure the whole organization is going to the right direction. Okay? I don't know if you are familiar with the career of Staff Plus Engineer. Who have heard about Staff Plus Engineer? Nobody? Okay. A Staff Plus Engineer is one path in your career beyond a senior. Okay? In the past, we had early career, and then middle level, and then senior, and done. In the management path, we have tech lead, head, director, VP, owner, and something like that. The idea of Staff Plus Engineer is, okay, right now we have a path career beyond the senior. So we have the staff, then principal, then distinguished, and some companies might have fellow engineer. Okay? The idea is, okay, I have a principal that has the same ranking level of director, a distinguished that has the same level of VP, and so on. Okay? So right now I still coding as IC, individual contributor, but I need to drive the whole organization through the right technology direction as well. So that's why I decided to talk about architecture. Usually right now everybody don't care about it. They want to just put the application with a huge scalability, but who cares about architecture right now, right? It's not fun to talk about it. A little bit about me. As you can see, this is my picture. It's my beautiful face. I don't have beautiful face, that's why. I'm a senior engineer and architect. My Twitter handle is Otavio Java. I'm Java champion. I have been in the executive committee since Java 8. If you enjoy Java 8, hopefully you enjoy Java 8. If you don't, sorry, I try my best, but Java is hard to move forward. I'm also enjoy a lot of history, and it's not related to my talk, but anyway, if you want to know more about me. I'm also Eclipse and Apache committer. I enjoy Jakarta EE, MicroProfile specification. I write specification. I received Duke Choice Award. I received JCP Award as well. And in my free time, I decided to write book and articles. That means I don't have a social life. I need more friends to do something else than technology. So if you want to be my friend, join me on Twitter so we can talk more about something than code. Okay, I will talk about architecture and scalability, right? But what does mean architecture? Because if you go to any book definition, it has one own definition, right? So if you go to buildings, it has one definition. Even if I go to IT, everybody has one definition of architecture. So the Just Enough Soft Architecture has a definition about, okay, it's a layer beyond the design. The clean architecture, I don't remember the definition, but it has a different one. The soft architecture by Simon Brown, sorry. It has 3 definitions where they took the term architecture and multiplied for 3. So it has architecture, architecturing, the verb, and the subjective. The philosophy, so everybody has your own definition about architecture. And it's hard to discuss about it because it's become like a cloud native definition, right? Right now, everybody has your own definition about cloud native. It's like Hakuna Matata. Everybody has your own definition about Hakuna Matata. It's become architecture to us. So everybody has your own definition. It depends of the book that you enjoy to read. You're gonna give me a different context about architecture. I'm a person who enjoys to write specification. I did what the specification does. I read several books, and based on that, I create my own definition. To me, architecture is both. It's software and organization itself. Why? As you can see here, it's a bundle context of DDD. First, the context matters to us. It's important to know where it's going. I usually just say that, okay, if you are until senior, the it depends makes sense. You can use. But beyond the senior, the right question is, what the context? You need to understand the context because there is no perfect solution. There is only trade-offs. The exception is FTP instead of Kafka and Apache Solr. Also, okay, can I do an amazing job, amazing software if without a good structure? The answer is no. It's impossible. Remember the Cobbles law. So if you have a terrible structure organization, your code will reflect that somehow. Okay? If you have a bureaucracy process, your code will reflect that as well. Imagine right now that you have 1,000 people in your organization. You need to drive technically these people. It's impossible to just have one team, right? Remember the two-rule pizza. The idea of architecture is to make sure the organization as people and the technical perspective go to the same direction. And why it matters to us right now? Because everything is architecture. Java is everywhere, architecture is everywhere. And software makes sense to everybody. So we could see Forbes in 2011 that said every company is a software company. Then we moved to CEO Network in 2015, where every company is a data company. And during the pandemic situation, we could see that it's impossible to create any kind of business if without thinking about software. Okay, I want to ride a bike, so I need to use an app to ride a bike. I want to come here, I need to use assistant. So it's impossible to do any kind of solution if without thinking about software. And right now, we have integration with everything. So I'm an e-commerce. I need to have integration with my payment providers, such as PayPal. I need to send an email with any kind of email provider, such as Gmail, or something like that. So everything is about software. So why we should care about architecture? To achieve the simplicity. The main goal of to care about architecture is to achieve the simplicity of your code. Remember, my definition is, okay, architecture is a view of both people and software. And I need to make sure that one people onboarding the company has an easy way to start to code as soon as possible. Otherwise, it's a waste of time. It's a waste of resource. Okay. Also, there is several definitions about complexity. The one that I enjoy belongs to this book here, The Philosophy of Software Design, that has the definition here. Complexity is anything related to the structure of software where it's hard to understand and also hard to modify. As much you I need to read 1,000 books, thousands of documentation to do a single modification. Okay, my system is huge with huge complexity. So I need to put a single button and with just one action, and then I need to modify 10 pages or 10 products inside my code. That means your code has a huge complexity. When talk about complexity, it's hard to measure that, right? It's impossible to measure that. However, in the same book, they try to achieve any kind of measurement with 3 ways. The first way is the change amplification. The change amplification is how many pieces of my code do I need to change to achieve one feature. 1 piece, 2 pieces, 10 pieces, 11 pieces. As bigger I have, higher is my change amplification. It's one signal That is, my system has a huge complexity on that. The second one is the cognitive load. Suppose right now, the whole team will change, swap, and new people coming. How many days they need to understand what's going on there? How many days they need to understand the architecture there? So 1 day, 2 days, 10 days, 100 days. If so, it has a higher cognitive load. 1 day, okay, you're doing the right way. And the last, we're talking about the real world, right? The unknown, the unpredictable happen every time. So my goal here is to achieve or decrease these two little guys here because I am not able to control this one here. Okay, again, change amplification, cognitive load, decrease the complexity to achieve simplicity by my architecture, to finally, when unknown happen, I'm able to focus more in the third one. But okay, hopefully I explained to you that architecture in the system is important. But anyway, why do we need architecture as well? Just to summarize, less damage. We need to think about a company with 100 people, 2,000 people. We need to make sure that, okay, I want to achieve simplicity to receive less damage. Unite the team. Again, we're talking about a company that has over 100 teams. We need to make sure that everybody is going to the right direction. The front-end team, you consume the back-end providers or API. We need to make sure that everybody has the same quality of code, the same guarantee. Avoid fault tolerance. Avoid complexity. Do the incremental way, right? So hopefully nobody is still using waterfall anymore, right? So hopefully everybody is doing agile methodology. Therefore, they need to do step by step. You can see that even in technology. Right now, Java releases a version every 6 months. Jakarta EE releases a version every one year. So even technology is going through agile methodology because we know the best way to test our application is on production, right? Who cares about tests? Let's put the user closer to the solution instead of wait 1 year, 2 years, or whatever. And this buzzword that's amazing, it's scalability. So I feel more comfortable when somebody puts scalability in the room. And when talk about scalability of the architecture, the software is the easiest thing that you need to think. Again, software is the easiest thing to think about scalability. Because right now, when you talk about architecture, we think about people. Right? We have 10 people today, you're going to have 20 people tomorrow. People is leaving, people is coming. We need to make sure that everybody has the same culture. We need to make sure that everybody has the same quality of code, at least a similar way, or the same methodology when it makes sense. And the technology, when I say technology, I don't say, okay, just use Java. Okay, it's better Java, but just use one technology. My whole point is, okay, use that technology because it makes sense. What happened every single time that when I go to the company is something like, okay, a team decides to use Go because they want to test it. And for some reason, the Go in production is a little bit different than Go doing some hello worlds. And guess what? Nobody knows Go to go deep on that. And then they need to rewrite the whole system to a language that everybody knows. Or a person decides to write a language like Scala because they want to learn Scala. Then they find a new job opportunity to keep working in Scala. When they left, nobody knows Scala. So it's happened every single time in every company. So the idea to scalability is not only about software, but about culture, methodology, and technology. We need to make sure that everybody is the same page. And okay, hopefully I explained to you that architecture makes sense. The definition of architecture makes sense. But who is the charge? Who is the architect to make the change, right? Who has the power to define what's going in or what's going out? Okay, just because I love history, it doesn't make sense in my presentation. The etymology of the word architect, so we can't sleep right now. So it's boring stuff. It's Greek word is chief, architect, builder. So it's a master builder, architecton, or principal engineer. Okay? But just ignore that. Who is an architect in our team? One architect has a lot of duties. They need to handle with trade-offs. Again, there is no perfect solution. Chains. You need to make sure that chains make sense and avoid the fault tolerance. Indeed, I saw in the past when they tried to put one architect in the charge to the whole organization. And for sure, it doesn't make sense, right? We created stereotypes because of that. The architect ninja, the guy who says something and then disappears. Or the master wizard, the guy who say wise windows, and nobody understood. When then we start to question about it, they will disappear again. The reason about it is because, okay, one person to handle everything is impossible. And also, it doesn't make sense, especially in the agile methodology. When I said about why do you need architect, we talk about single point of failure. If I just have one person who knows everything, when this person leaves for some reason, the whole everything going down, right? If just one person has the whole view, everything goes down. There is one word definition by agile methodology that is bus factor. How many people can I go through the bus to my product going down? If I just have one person as an architect, just one. And the Manager 3.0 talk about, okay, I need to do freedom to my team. I need to do empower to my team. I need to help to achieve, but don't do the top-down model way. What does that mean? It doesn't make sense to have just one person to do a top-down in the whole everything. And one presentation around Java that I enjoyed too much, it belongs to Mark, who is chief architect of the Java. He did a presentation about, okay, who is in charge of Java. He did a presentation about a huge pressure because everybody, including me, wants to move the OpenJDK to GitHub on that time because for some reason they decided to keep in Mercurial. And he did a presentation about who's the charge of future Java. And he said this word here, the C word. Okay, the C word is a person who is responsible for overseeing and protecting something that's worth to carrying and presenting. Oh, hey, you're late. Shame on you. And you can see your presentation here, so take a look at the presentation. And right now we have this word, C word. So the whole point here is, it doesn't make sense to have just one person to carry the whole architecture. We need to share the idea to more people. You need to unite the team to that direction. Okay? It's impossible to me that I need to drive over 3,000 people, the whole architecture of the whole company. I need to have more team. I need to have more people. And we have more articles about it. For example, Architecture Without Architects by Eric. Okay, let's try my German in front of a Netherlands person. Durberg, hopefully I said it okay, that had a definition, and The Myth of the Genius Programmer by software engineer at Google. And nobody believes that one person do what Humble did, like, okay, let's solve everything just a person, army. So it don't make sense. The solution about architecture is to make more scalable. It's put everybody assemble in one single page. The whole team doing almost everything. It's in charge of the senior person or the principal or the staff distinguish to drive the whole team to the right direction and not be the top-down person. Basically, I enjoy the 4 steps: A, communication, documentation. Based on that, we are able to create a simple design. Remember, the main goal of the architecture is to achieve simplicity in design of code. And finally, we have the architecture. And I usually, when I say documentation, it's it's kind of fear moment because nobody wants to do documentation. But think about it. There is two ways to think about documentation. When you don't do or don't write documentation at all, or less documentation, basically you need to stay the whole time in the meetings. Because the latest information is in the people's minds. And also you don't have the power to read people's mind, at least, who knows? Maybe Nicholas. You need to do several meetings to read this information. Okay, I don't like to write code because my code is enough explaining. But let's face it, self-comment is utopia. It doesn't make sense in the real world. And yes, remember, we are talking about the real world solution, right? People living, people moving, and if you don't have any kind of documentation about decision, architecture, something like that, sometimes you are able to do the same mistake twice, or destroy the whole company in 45 minutes. It's real. I don't remember the company's name. They put some codes and comments, and they decide to use the same codes to increase a feature, and the company had like $300 billion, and it was bankrupt in only 45 minutes. Only because they decided to use the same code, and they have no idea what's going on there. And it's a huge effort to assign people. Okay? Okay, you probably know, okay, Otavio, you talk about you need to do documentation, but over-documentation is also a nightmare. Because when every single time you write a code and also write a documentation, it's easy to depreciate, especially because nobody wants you to write 1,000 of documentation. It's hard to maintain. It's hard to write. Okay, I need to put a feature, but I need to write more 4 documents. Okay, it's unfortunately it's become more work in the documentation than the code, and because of that, the documentation become an enemy than an ally. Remember what I said about architecture? Everything is about trade-off. That includes the architecture documentation itself. I know if you do over documentation, PPT or presentation does not compile. But let's face it, if I don't do documentation, blind code is a good horse. You need to go in the middle here, the fair documentation. Okay? Let's try to do the fair documentation to your organization. What I usually do in the first step to make sure that everybody is on the same page is the 4-step of architecture that I usually do in each team, and right now, so far, they usually go well. I'll explain later about my case. This 4 here is enough to do this first step. Is a fair documentation as far as I know. The C4 model, this little guy here, think about the Google Maps of your architecture. You are able to see on the higher level until the latest level. The tech radar to map the technologies that you are using in your company. The idea is not to avoid, but to understand what's going on in your whole organization. The RDR, or Architecture Decision Record. Think about, okay, this way I won't be able to do the same mistake twice. That sounds good, right? And the communications. Yes, Otavio, a clear documentation helps to go to the right direction. Let's start with the first one, C4 model. The architecture maps view. The C4 model has C4, right? The first one is the context. Remember, you're not able to say it depends when you are after the seniority. So, what the context? Containers, components, and finally code, where I recommend to avoid that. Let's go to some samples about C4 model. The first one here is a sample, as you can see. It has some details about the architecture, mainly the user, because when you write code, it should have a proposal, it should have a reason, it should have a context to do it. So it's a start point of your architecture. Everyone should understand, mainly the business people, mainly the PO people, the part owner. it talks about the system and integration with the user. For example, as you can see here, I have my user who is a banking customer user who interacts with internet banking, who has integration with the legacy. I love COBOL. And every time that I want to notify the people, I send a message to my email system notification and so on. Basically, I will have this view and some description about what's going on there. But as you can see here, a PO is able to understand what I'd like to do. So a user who will interact with my internet banking, and I need to keep moving my application while I'm moving my legacy code to the new system. Okay? Because the real world we should handle with the legacy, unfortunately. The next level is C2. That is the containers. Don't think about Dockers. I know we usually related containers with Docker, but container is any kind of deployable piece of your code. For example, an application, a database. And this time here, you're going to talk more about the integration between the containers. As you can see here, right now, my system become with more piece. So it just has one here to the people from the business to understand. And then right now, I have my database. I have my view application with hotdog, probably, right? We have my API here, my mobile API, my single page application, and so on. So the whole point here is my system become several small pieces that is my containers. Right now, I start to talk about more the integration between them. So right now, I go more focus on my technical perspective of view. To finally go to components. Components is a small piece of containers, where right now I'm able to talk more about what's going on there with more details, more technologies. So right now, as you can see, I'm using Java, my database is Postgres, and so on. So I have components of security in my application that might use Jakarta security. If you want to, this point, you're able to do the design docs. Why do I have design docs? It's a nice way to take the senior people or people who have more experience to write down the proposed idea to explain why to people who is more younger in experience. So multiple components, so we're able to do the details, technology, the integrations, and designs, and something like that. And the last one is the code. Remember, the context, what matters to us, containers, components, and finally code. If you remember the sensor of documentation, to me, it's too much. It's over documentation. When you try to put documentation inside my code, like a UML, my recommendation, you're able to use it if you want to, but on an exception. It's too much details, and it's a UML. And sometimes the IDE might do it for you if you want to use. But you usually say, okay, just go to C3. That's enough. So if somebody go there, you understand that you have an application with Java, with its components, its integrations, there is a database, and so on. The next step after the C4 model, to me, to make sure the architecture has a huge scalability, is the tech reader. I know you probably heard from ThoughtWorks, but remember, there is no standard to write a tech reader. You're able to create your context and your goal to use tech reader. To me, I usually use that to technology view. My main goal doing that is first to avoid a mix of technologies. For example, I have one team that has a huge experience with Apache Kafka. And I'm going to have another team that would like to do a message to do exactly something that my team one does. Does it make sense to use another different technology? Instead of use the same people to unite in the same efforts? Usually the answer is no, right? So It's better when you try to avoid duplicate efforts. And technology is moving. Why not mapping the technology that you are looking for? Okay, let's try Quarkus. Let's try Micronauts. Let's try Jakarta EE10. So let's map in that, see what's going on there. As I mentioned before, TechRadar has two definitions, the rings and the quadrants, where there is no standard. You can put the name that you want to, and the context matters. Okay. I usually use the language frameworks, categories, platform techniques, and tools as the rings. And two quadrants, closer to the core is important, far from the core is deprecated. As you can see, I have changed the nomenclature here to strategic, essential, potential, and deprecated. And again, you are able to choose to whatever you want to. So strategic is the most important technology that your company is using right now. So if the technology just decides to stop, to move forward, you are in a dangerous situation. The team has a huge confidence to use that, and there are thousands of success cases to use that. For example, Java with Jakarta, Java with Spring, or something like that. Essential is something that the team starts to use more often, know how to use, but it's not fully mature like the strategic one. That's still training to do. Potential is a place to do the research. So I want to try Jakarta EE10. So map in that and be happy. Document that while you're studying that, while you're researching that. So the whole team might to see what's going on there. It has a change. It might have adoption. And carry out to studies and tests. And the last one, unsafe. Avoid to use, old-fashioned. This one here is my favorite, to be honest. The main goal of ADR is to avoid the same mistake twice. Okay? Records all strategic decision on your architecture to make sure the historic. And when the people will ask, okay, why do I have this button here, the auto destruction button here? Who knows? Let's click it. And then destroy your whole system because of that. So if you documented it, they will understand why did you go to this point. Because sometimes we are the close time to deliver something, and then you do a little bit of go horse. Who knows? And mainly, the idea is to avoid the same mistake twice, 3 times. Happen will happen. But the main goal is to avoid, and most of all, to start to measure or do some measurement around the trade-off in any kind of decision that you must have. And the last one, communication. If you have a clear communication, it's better to you. To your whole team. Try to use more asynchronous communication than meetings. And if you do have some meetings, try to put some meetings notes and make the right read deal. What does that mean? So you have a meeting, you write down the meeting notes, and everything that's there is true. You have 2 days to review it. After you review it, done. It's true. Okay, I just have 10 minutes left. Did you say 20 minutes? No, I'm not able to see you. 20 minutes? Okay, 25. Thank you. The main goal here is to avoid the breakdown the silos of knowledge. Okay? So, with that idea of communication, architecture, the definition of C4, the TechRadar, you have more integration between your team. You prevent the chaos. You avoid delay of decisions. So if you take a look at the whole history of software engineer, you are able to see the integration is the key, right? In 2001, we saw the manifesto, Agile Manifesto, that the idea was to integrate users with developers, right? Then we moved to the DevOps culture, where we had integration between developers and operations. Then we moved to DevSecOps, where we have developers with security, with operation. So developers must have a nice integration, at least better than I do, right? So you need to have more friends, you have to talk with more areas, drink some beers instead of apple juice. Maybe that's one reason that I'm alone, so I don't drink beers. And coffee. Okay, try to don't cry of that. So, okay, I talked too much around this idea, but let's show a case that we did here. So, it's a company that I'm working right now. That's a Zoop Innovation. It's a Brazilian company that right now has over 3,000 people. And basically, they have 4 open source products. OrSec to handle the security, Charles to handle the deploy integration integrated with Kubernetes, Rich, the automation tool, and the Beagle, the BFF. I'm not talking about best friend forever, but backend for front end. And those 4 products here are the set. So I talk about over 3,000 people, and they're supposed to be open source. And they invited me to join the company, and they said, okay, let's do it, why not? And it was my first day in the team. Just my first day. And then, okay, hey Otavio, we are doing open source for 1 year, but I have one question. What is open source? And when I talk about, okay, you need to do integration between teams, right? So how are you able to do that? How does it happen? No, it's architecture. It's a bad thing. You're not allowed to say that's loud, so don't say architecture here. And yes, they believe. Otavio, you're doing so much questions. You need to believe that idea. And to me, it was a chaotic moment that I decided to cry a lot. And then start to do questions. Okay, why did you go to that decision? And they showed me a doc sheet where it has the technology and the number. And the number was between 1 and 6. And I was scared to ask, why did you took these numbers? Because to me, it was like a dice. They put Java and then put the dice, and then, okay, let's go to this way or not this way. I'm kidding for sure, but the whole point is, I have no idea about the trade-off between the decisions. And this is my favorite part. The user became the enemy of the technology. So they used to do a consulting service or outsourcing service where the main goal was to deliver it fast and fast and fast. But in the product engineer, we need to make the user happy. So the user do a lot of questions, do several suggestions, is an enemy to deliver it fast. So they don't have any communication process, because if you never heard about bugs, there is no bugs. Okay? And they don't have a dev health team. They have no idea what dev health team was at the time. And my favorite one, okay, let's use microservices to have more scalability on the application. But wait, I have one database to 12 applications. How does it scale? And they looked to me and answered, okay, Otavio, it does scale. So basically, they have a scalability microservice that does not scale. And that was my first day. And then I left the company. No, I'm kidding. Then we start to study and make a deal. Okay, Otavio, let's start to everything as a code. That includes the decision. So every single piece of code is a decision. Synchronization with the clients. Decision by trade-off. Everything around. Okay, 10 minutes, thank you. Data-centric area. The first step was the C4 model. Right now, they were able to see by yourself, not only by me, that they had a huge complexity in the code. Because there was a product that has 15 people with 20 products with 20 different languages. That's amazing, right? So the team had more microservices than employees in the team. and more language, the employees in the team. And we decided to see that because of that. They had cyclomatic dependency as well, and it was able to see thanks to the C4 model. And remember what I said, everything is around code. We decided to use the C4 model builder, where we wrote down the code, and it will render this graph here. Okay, so it's a markdown way, and that is it. The decorator as well is a markdown application with Hugo. You can see the code working here. We are able to search the information, and basically each technology has 4 steps. Who is it using? Why they are using? The context of the use. If there is any relationship with the architecture decision record, there is a link, and the material to read more about it. So it's a public, remember, we are working in open source, so you can go opensource.zoop.com.br/radar, where you're able to see the whole information, why, how, and this kind of thing, the materials, a suggestion, and so on. The ADR, the architecture decision record, it's based on Markdown as well. Remember, everything's a code. We decided to use Log4Brains, okay? And as any kind of decision around technology, it starts from a draft. Then I can propose this idea. It might be rejected sometimes. It is. If accepted, eventually it might be deprecated. For example, I decide to use Java 11 on production. Right now it's become deprecated because the newest suggestion is to move everything to Java 17. So if I take a look at the history of the decision, I can see like a tree. Like, okay, it's a draft, right now it's a rejected. Okay, it was accepted, but right now it's deprecated. And I can see like a timeline. So it's a wonderful to us to visualize. At some time, you're able to see, to write down the details in Markdown. And for sure, data-centric area. Everything is data-based. We had 1,000 dashboards. For sure, we avoid to do mistake. We see you doing mistake. The idea is not to avoid to do mistake. You're gonna do, but it's to avoid to do the same mistake twice. Okay? And that's the result. So we started with just 4 users when I started the company. Right now, we have users around the globe. The visualization number of clients was 4. And right now, we have over 35,000 views monthly and clients around the globe. It's still more Brazilian, but remember, I'm talking about our experience between June and December, so it's just 6 months. And just because we decided to make the scalability better, or the architecture better, we got better results, especially because this product is around technology. For sure, I wasn't able to do it alone, so I have the whole team. Thank you, everybody, and the leadership to make it possible. And that is it. I have, how many times?
Perfect, perfect.
I have 20 minutes for questions. Right, thank you.
Well, we have a couple of minutes, so if you have questions, just raise your hand.
If you don't have questions, don't worry, I have free stickers as well.
Wow.
Okay, just a couple of stickers, but you can take here. I don't bite, usually.